Evening, evening, everybody. It's a short everybody tonight, obviously, and not political. Is there anybody here who hasn't actually voted yet? You've saved your vote up for tomorrow? Ah, okay. Just interested to know.
He's going for the free sausage sandwiches.
Ah, I see. That's what it is. Yeah, there certainly were no free sausage sandwiches at the early vote. Anybody know what sort of helicopter that was that fell in the water in Victoria?
Robbins.
A Robbo? I thought it probably was.
It was a Robinson.
Thank you. There wasn't enough of it left to tell for me. Okay, well, I don't think there's anything else I have to say other than we have our speaker tonight.
One of our own.
Who's one of our own tonight. And this is all about, tell us.
Yeah, wait for the slide. Wait
for the slide. Okay, wait for the slide. Here comes the slide. Okay, Ian.
Yeah,
the floor is yours.
For some of you, I've talked about Australian Air Data, the database before, but for some who might not have heard me rave on about this, the Australian Air Data database is the only complete, accurate database of every aircraft that's flown under Australian markings in the civil sense. It's the only one. There's none other that you can publicly access apart from AED. And the man who owns it, that man over there, doesn't even charge. That's because he's so bloody rich, being an ex-public servant. What I wanted to talk to about tonight, and also to later on go in and put some of the AAD stuff up so you can actually see what it looks like, is that over the years that Tony's been putting it together and the years that I've been working on the photographic side for him, there's been an unbelievable number of entries go into it. Tony would not, and you can go to the first slide if you like, but what I've said there is it's part about telling you what it's about, but also to talk about the people who have made sure that we have this photographic history. The data history is all down to him, but the photographic history belongs to hundreds and hundreds of other people. Okay, some years ago, I went down to Moorabbin Museum at the invitation of John Hopkins. Some of you know John and some you didn't. In John's own lunchtime, he was certainly Australia's greatest historian in aviation. Jeff Goodall would have been prepared to argue most times on it. But anyway, I was there at the museum, and John, as was his habit, liked to tell people what they were doing wrong. So I was taking some photos, and he lectured me on why I was at the wrong angle and taking the wrong view and after about 15 minutes, I decided what's the point of arguing, because it wasn't going to shut him up. So he can tell I continued the photo here. But then he actually stopped lecturing and said to me, he said, you know, this stuff here, all these aircraft, they're only scrap metal. They're not actually history. They're just scrap metal. The history is in the records and photos. That's the history of aviation. The planes themselves are nothing but leftover junk. Now, there's a few people would, again, argue with John on that one, but I did see his point, and I saw what John had the biggest accumulation of aircraft photos and records ever accumulated in Australia, and probably one of the biggest in the world. I'm thinking there may be places like Joe Bauer in America might have accumulated a bit more data, but I don't know who's ever accumulated more photos. John's collection of photos is in the millions, and still trying to get access to it. But anyway, it's another story. So anyway, I took on board what he's saying, and I got to talking to Tony about Australian Air Data and about actually putting some serious work into getting photos onto AAD, because the records are great, but the history also is what did they look like and when did they look like that and what did they do to it. And the records can be from the day they were building it to the day that they burned it in a fire at Mascot or it hit the side of a mountain chasing goats or something. But that's what the record's about. It's a database and it's records. So, as I said, this is the largest publicly readily accessible data record of not just Australia, but Pacific Islands, New Zealand, all those places. Tony can tell you how many lifetimes he spent doing it, and it's true. You could not count the number of records, and you could not count the number of photos. It's just far too many now. Originally, it was only Tony's and my photos that were on there, but we got swamped by other people who wanted to put photos on there. Simple as that, absolutely. And on a daily basis, we get offers from other people. Oh, can you use this? Can you use that? We actually search for some too, don't get me wrong. We'll go after anybody's collection. So that's a hint, everyone. Oh, the photos up the top there, sorry, we just randomly selected stuff out of there. I'm sure you recognise some of the stuff there. The first ugly things, we all know what they are, don't we? Exactly, they're the converted ones, yeah, the series. The middle one was one that nobody ever realised that Ansett actually flew single engine things up in New Guinea, but they did. Ansett mandated flew 185s. So did TIA, yeah, you would know that. Yeah, and the third one is one of the fabulous flying boats that found a beach to crash on. That's just the kind of scope, as I said, any photo that's relevant to the history of the aircraft can go on AAD. So you get things like ultralights, you get things like, you name it, and just standard stuff like Qantas. So Tony originally only wanted colour photos, and he has very strong preferences on what he considers a quality slide. We do argue about it a lot. I'll put anything on there and he'll take it off. But it's his bloody database. I'm not serious about it. Should be from the sunny side of the aircraft, photo just in front of the wings. Shouldn't exaggerate it like the second one is with the exaggerated wings. It should show markings, should be crystal clear, should be able to read the rego, blah, 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 blah. How many photos meet that? Probably a quarter of them, maybe less. Well, yeah. Well, remember, some of yours are on there, so be careful what you say. Okay. What's changed is over time, as we've had access to more and more collections, especially these old stuff, then people who took photos in the 1940s with a Brownie box camera, you cannot expect the same quality as a Canon digital of today. It just doesn't happen. Now, we can do a lot of digital editing, but there's a lot of them are so bad that you could edit them from here till Christmas and still not make them usable. And it's a shame because some of the stuff is so scarce. The other thing is the size. Originally, when people like Goodall and Hopton and all that started putting stuff out, the size they used was 600 pixels wide. Now, the problem with 600 pixels wide is as soon as you try and enlarge it, it just furs out. The minimum to get any reasonable view at is 1,000 wide. So if people send them in, and they do regularly at under that, I spend quite a bit of time digitally manipulating them to get them clear enough to put on there. So everything that's come off Goodall's side and things like that has all started at 600 and has been manipulated. And some of them go easy, some of them fight. I mean, that's just a fact. What's on the database? Not just VH, but also GAU. A very good friend of mine who's no longer with us, Eddie Coates from America, used to be Australian, used to be British, blah, 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 had and still has on his own website that still exists, CAHS look after his website. They've kept it intact as it was when he died. He had 67% of all GAU registered aircraft as photographs on that website. When you think about that, when you think of the dates on them, up to the 1920s, that's an amazing effort. So that's there. Gyros are there. The Trites are there. The RAOs is there. Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, New Zealand, Nauru, Palau, PNG, Solomon Islands, Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu and Tuvalu. All those are on the database. How does he do it? I don't know. I think there's more than one Tony Arbin does this, but anyway, it's a different story. So that's what's on there. In all seriousness, the VH stuff or the Australian stuff in the top box there is the easiest to get photos for. After that, it gets more and more difficult because just as people put them onto websites, but finding them is the problem because they put them on Facebook and things like that, and you've just got to be lucky most times to be able to find the photos. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. So there's a lot missing in that stuff down there. We're doing a lot better with New Zealand now, except for he went over to New Zealand the other day and got rained back to Australia. That's another story. Part of this is about recognising the number of people who are still around who have given us their collections and the number who aren't still around who have donated their collections to this database. And you notice up the top line there's a couple of people's names you might recognise. Bob Livingston collection that goes back from almost the Brownie box camera days right through to Zenza Branicas and things like that. It's pretty impressive. Warwick Henley gave me a memory stick once a long time ago when he took me for a fly in Crow, and he gave me a memory stick with Avalon on it, and that's all on there, all important. Ray Villeman, who doesn't often come to meetings, but Ray had some wonderful photos he's given me of flying doctor stuff and all that. Brilliant stuff.
Medical service.
Yeah. Bloody flying doctors. Okay. Some names here you might know, some you don't. But this next line is people who had huge collections over many, many years, and especially David Carter was a hanger rat in the same era I was at Bankstown in the 60s. And for funny, all the years that we got kicked out of hangars in Bankstown in the 60s, I never actually knew him by name. When I met him years later, I didn't recognise him, probably because he was 50 years older, I suppose, but that could have something to do with it. Ben Danica, a lot of you'll know Ben. Ben had one of those amazing flying careers, but he's a very generous man with his material. Stewie Keto was more an agricultural specialist, started in the same era, worked on ag planes all his life, and amassed an incredible collection of photos of ag planes. Warwick Bigsworth, some of you know Warwick from HARS. Are you online, Warwick? A damn nice guy, despite working for Haas. A fellow whose name...
I'm here.
Hello. And you owe me some photos. I haven't got anything for a long time from you.
They're coming.
Oh, excellent. A name I didn't know, and again, the same thing. Hung around Bankstown and all the Sydney places, same year as I did, took millions of photos. Greg Banfield. I've never met Greg, don't know Greg, but by God, the collection of photos is absolutely amazing. Merv Prime was another hanger rat, except he was in Perth. And so all his stuff goes back to those things before Jeff Goodall went over there. So all this old stuff out of Perth comes from Merv Prime. Recent addition to our materials, Neil Follett from Victoria, who was a Moorabbin hanger rat in the old days, flew all the old Royal Victorian stuff, the chipmunks and tigers and all that. And again, massive amount of wonderful photos. A lot of you know Phil Vabre, Phil, the air traffic controller extraordinaire, retired. Very much filthy, yeah. And one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. Roland might be on or might not, I don't know. Roland, again, an amazing collection dating back of photos. Nigel from Dorr from South Australia. Danny and David Tanner, father and son combination from South Australia, been photographing forever. Bobby Neat, who started photographing probably in the 50s sometime, I would imagine. And we've had so many amounts of material from him over the years. Russell Legg, our Rusty from Scone. I don't know any of you know Rusty, but he's another one who's been there, done that, and takes a lot of photos. And some people that nobody ever heard of until you collect them like this. Darryl McKenzie did a lot of work up in New Guinea and liked to take photos of particularly light aircraft in New Guinea. Lindsay Northrop, Canberra-based, been taking photos of her, another huge collection. And just another damn sight nice guy, despite being a public servant. Jaden Lang, I don't even know where Jaden's from, Tony, do you? No, but he gets all these photos and particularly helicopters and stuff like that, stuff you're not getting from anyone else. Alistair Coots, another hanger rat from Western Australia. The reason this is, half these people are with us, half of them are not, and we must be very, very grateful for them, for the collections we've received, because otherwise this history could not have been recorded. And we wouldn't have this, amassing this collection of photos. So just a sample range of those various people that are mentioned there. You people who used to hang around Bankstown would recognise the top left-hand corner. The Fawcett, yep. Which engine version? The second engine. You'd know that one, would you not, Bob? You know that photo, don't you?
Took it.
Yes, he recognised it.
Thank you.
Next one's a Ben Danica photo of him flying the Avro. The next one's the best light trainer ever built, the Victor. Is it PRU? I think it might Papa Romeo uniform, yeah. The Tiger Moth was the one they used in an ABC pretend bullshit movie that they used to do. And it was parked down at Luskin Tyre, one of Ray's. This was the machine Ray was going to do up and make into a sprayer again for air shows, but unfortunately cancer cancelled that idea. But nobody's actually been able to identify the Tiger Moth, which is not surprising because Ray couldn't identify the Tiger Moths he was building. He'd just pull out the next file and say, yeah, that's that one. As I said, from Stuart Kedar, the ag stuff, and the rest of them are just things you might want to recognise. The Ansett mandated, the basic trainer at Bankstown in the early 60s, of course, was that, the old Piper. Yeah, which one's that? Is that a Colt or a tri-pacer? Sorry? Yes. That's the only way you'll know. And the next one we all know about, Percival. Yep. Sorry? It's a Doggett, but that's a Percival BP9. Yeah, yep. It was always in contention for the ugliest aircraft ever built. And there are those who claim that the Transavia is the ugliest, but look, that wins easily, let's be honest. So there's all the details behind those. And you'll see, again, the reason for showing that is the range of places and people they come from. Now, this is more a dedication to those who aren't with us anymore for various reasons, some age, some, unfortunately, a lot of cancer gets in that. But without the generosity of these people, you can't have databases like WAD. They just don't exist. So here's a collection of things from these various people who, over the many years, Mick Madden was absolutely devoted to the nomads. Mike Madden. Wow, you'll come back and smack me. And I think he got photos of virtually every nomad as it was being constructed. And again, unless you've got a person who's living at an airfield, then you can't get stuff like that. Could well be, if you might have its identity on the next one. No, that's only got a serial number on it, a constructor's number. But that's again just showing the range and the conditions. What's the ZKAF Alpha Foxtrot? It is a monospa. Oh, well, it's a historical society, Warwick. I remember making special trips on many occasions on the push bike from Bexley to Mascot to have a look at Astra's toys, and those Hudsons were, of course, magnificent. And there's every so often there are an Arval and Plonker Merlin-powered Lancaster in there just to make my year. And I lived under the runway, and when a Lancaster's coming in, popping the engines as it's trying to hold the thing in the air, just the noise is just wonderful. So that's those and who they come from once again. I would like to talk a bit more about Eddie Coates and his collection, because Eddie's a unique person. Eddie was British originally, but claimed to be British, Australian, Tasmanian, and United Statesian, depending on what mood he was in at the time. His stories about growing up during the Blitz in London are just so funny, and over a glass of red wine they become a lot funnier. Eddie invited me over there a few years ago, 2019, on the way back from the D-Day ceremony. I stayed at Eddie's place for a week because he wanted his collection to come back to Australia. But he wanted it in a way that the permanent collection resided down in Melbourne, but he wanted it digitised and put onto WAD. So that collection was, first of all, was an awful lot bigger than I thought. And it was all on that 600 size, which means every single photo had to be digitised and blown up. Worse still, and you think it can get worse, it does. Eddie originally started with the standard 120 size cameras, that things like that we had, and he printed everything. Then he scanned them off the prints. And anybody who sent him stuff sent him prints that he scanned off. Now, if you've ever scanned it off prints, you can't expect magic quality on very old prints because it's not going to happen. But Eddie couldn't understand there was a problem, and he never learned, until he got a digital camera, he never learned about digital processing. So everything was just done a straight scan as it came out in 600. But the collection, his collection of the Australian stuff was all about stuff until he left Australia. So all his stuff is pre-1970, every single thing that's there. Right? Eddie has also been upon the Australian Tasmanian Yank, has a very sarcastic turn of phrase. So when he writes up, and you've got to look at his website, it's just called Eddie Coates. It's easy to find. Right? When you look it up, you'll find photos where he's had something a little bit barbed to say about the aircraft or the owners or whatever, or just I don't like the design, or why did this idiot paint it that colour? And so he used to get a lot of complaints, funnily enough. I can't understand that. And he used to keep having to correct what he'd written because people had complained. But what a lovely guy, and most generous person you never meet. Funny enough, he came out to Australia, and I forgot what he originally started, but he started flying in Tasmania at Launceston on the old Tigers and things there. But he also got into computers very early. He got a job with one of the airlines as a ticketing clerk. And he started to learn about computers, and he said, why aren't we doing this on a computer? So computerisation of ticketing, really, Australia was one of the leaders, funnily enough. And Tasmania, I know that sounds ridiculous, 2 heads and 6 fingers and all, but Eddie down there actually got things moving. Anyway, he turned out to be world famous, travelled the world and getting bulk amounts of money from all these airline companies and things to computerise things, and very modest about it too, by the way. Really, really lovely bloke.
We could blame him for self-checking.
I know if he was still around, I'm sure he'd have an opinion about self-checking. Okay, so that's what that's all about. All these people who had wonderful collections that we've been able to. Bob Kerr from New Zealand, who Tony acquired the Bob Kerr collection, and it's an amazing collection. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, Gus Gawlke's a funny one because that's back at Eagle Farm. Gus Gawlke lived at Eagle Farm. He worked there in the late 40s, early 50s, and took a lot of photos, but he was very selective. If it was just boring and normal, it wasn't worth a photo. So every Gus Gawlke's photo is something interesting, like CAL, the Anson, stuff like that, and magic stuff. Buckets more. This is just name after name after name. And this is only a very small number of the contributors in AAD's database.
Few of them are dead too.
Yeah, there's not many of them alive, I don't think. Yeah, unfortunately, people got this bad habit of leaving us, just when you need them most to explain what the photo was supposed to be. So, okay, that's where it all comes from and how it's used. Tony's been adding this ownership history now, right? So originally the database was there, but Tony's now adding the actual ownership history. So when you go back and look at it, if there's 6 photos of something, it generally refers to the different owners and the different markings they had while they owned it. And I'll show some in a minute. But if you were to search Foxtrot Oscar X-ray, it's the most used registration in Australia, 14 aircraft. Most of them by Lynn Fox Property Group, most of them helicopters. But if you were to dial up FOX, you find that on that page, it's not only got those 14, but there's another 9 other registrations. What happens with the database, it finds FOX1 and says, hang on, it changed rego to ABC3. And so that'll be on there. And then if you look up ABC3, then it's referred rego. So you can trace the history of a plane over and over and over. And when you've got things like that, it's time consuming, but the complete history is always there, hopefully with most of the photos. So here's a tiger moth that some of you will recognise because it lives up here, BJE. So that's its lifetime history, all the different colour schemes it had. Now, you'll notice one there that's in a rather unique semi-military scheme down in the bottom left-hand corner. That is the typical photo that Eddie Coates would have had a comment on. And it wouldn't have been pleasant.
And I'd have agreed.
And we'd all agree, yes, exactly. Yeah. But so I'm a believer the original de Havilland schemes on tiger moths were the best scheme they ever did. But some would disagree, I suppose. But that red and white scheme is pretty tidy. You notice its con number was a DHA, a de Havilland Australia constructor number. Yeah, built at Bankstown. Okay, so here is the history of ownership of that aircraft. Or actually, that's part of the history of the ownership of it. So demobbed in 48, went to Maryborough. You see, it's gone all the way through everywhere in Queensland that you can imagine and a few other places beside. Went down to New South Wales for a while, South Australia. Next slide will go on again. So this is now you see young Warwick there has owned it for quite some time, but he's, and this is the kind of history you get for a well-used tiger moth. Is that it? Oh, no. Can you dial it up to the main website itself? Thank you. So that's all I wanted to talk about, was how we're using it, what we're accumulating to do it, where we're getting it from, an extreme amount of gratitude to all the people alive and dead who have been so kind as to give us their collections. What does it translate to? I've got a couple of, now what I want to do is just show a couple of typical ones, and then anybody who wants to dial something up is welcome to have a chop at it. Right, so you go into search up the top there, and you'll see there's a range of things you can select. And it's surprising, even if you just know an owner, if that owner's records are in there, you can just search the owner and find out what planes he's ever had. So I'm not sure if you've ever been added yet, but we could do that. But I wanted to look up something you're more familiar with. So how about we look up a Dakota or DC3? Where are we? Where's our regos? How about EAO? EAO. I'm being very selective. Oh, that's all categories, huh? Yeah, there it is, EAO. So EAO, the first EAO was a DC3, and then so you got EAO2, the second one was a superconic. So what will happen, okay, if we can make it move. As you go down the page under EAO, so you'll see there's a 4, and now see a derived registration, EAM4. That was the 767 before under a different rego. EDD was the DC3 back again in a very different colour scheme. And as you go down, you see BAM, same DC3, but a different registration. And then somebody put a filthy Jet Ranger under a Qantas number. That's not right. Now here's our DC3 back again as EBX and as SBH. And that's what I mean about, so this is one airframe, the DC3, that was Qantas's number 1. No, it's a 767. Yeah, rubbish stuff. Yeah, just Boeing junk, mate. So let's have a look at EAO and see what it talks about. So remember, this is the first thing it's done since it's come out of the military. So it's come out of the military as A6557, but prior to that, it had one of those military VHs on it, and also had a 43 number, as USAAF number, when it's built. So it's come out, it's been demobbed, and you see the date there, 12th of 1246, and it's come out as EAO with Qantas. It shows its con number, and this is one of these DC3s that they made a complete mess of and actually gave it 2 distinctly different con numbers. Seriously, they buggered up completely, so they said, oh, we can fix that, we'll just give it a second con number. It's good when you're tracing history, I can tell you. But to see what happened to it, so from 46 up to 57, it stayed as EAO and then became EBX. And there's a 47 photo from Eddie Coates. I don't recognise where it is. It's in 47, that could well have been Essendon or something like that. They had trees down in Melbourne in those days, apparently. So, okay, so we've seen what it looked like then. If we kick back to the first screen, so what did it go to? EBX, was it? Yeah. Well, let's go and find EBX. So there's EBX, and you'll notice that there's no photo of it. Okay. And we'll see why. 57, 1960 went to SBH. What do you know about SBH numbers? You know these. PAO, some do, yes. Yeah. Now you notice as you go to that, it's got all those previous regos on there. So after it's gone through 12 regos, that becomes quite a long block of numbers. Okay, so no EBXs because I've never been able to find a. By the way, I've got a database of DC3s, of every DC3 that flew under an Australian rego, either military or civil. and its full history. And what I'm trying to do is get a photo at every single stage. I've been working on that for 20 odd years. I think I'm about a quarter of the way through, and it'll never get finished. But anybody who's interested in a major project, I just have one for you. Yeah, so there's EBX, and you see what happened to it. What happened to EBX? It became SPH. So let's go back and find. Yeah. Why does your mouse work opposite? That's weird. Oh, it's baffle. That's right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Okay, did anybody see SPH going through there? It'll be there. Or not. Oh, there it is right there. And once again, you notice, again, no photo. So it went up to New Guinea in 60, but in 62, it went to the Royal Netherlands Air Force's X-18. Amazing. And then came back in 64 as Echo Delta Delta. So we should be able to find photos of those two because they're much more common. Okay, yeah, go backwards, backwards, backwards. So there it is. And I can click on that photo and blow it up. So there's the same plane now in Indonesian markings. Yeah, East Indies, yes. Yeah, not Indonesian, sorry, Indonesian. So that was I imagine it was under some government loan or something like that. I don't know what the actual, I can't find out why they had it for 2 years, but they did. And so you see on that bucket there, here's X-18, and now we've got a series of photos of EDD under different schemes. So there's X-18, there it is as Qantas. Now that one has a lot of significance personally to me. Coming back from a tour around South Australia, Victoria and Broken Hill and places, got to Bathurst in a 172, and as Bathurst always does, it went all cloudy and murky. So with the wisdom of all about 100 hours, you know, really high hour pilot, I decided to continue to Bankstown. That plane found me up near Williamtown and radared me into Williamtown after dark. So this plane has a special significance to me. It was, that's what I was doing. It was on a training flight. Yeah. Yep. That exactly that. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Came across when I'd radioed in that I didn't have a clue where I was. They came straight across and said, "We have you on our radar, on our weather radar," I think he said. But anyway, it didn't matter what radar it was. He said, "Do you know you're nearly at Newcastle?" I said, "Well, obviously I don't know." Well, yeah. Anyway, long story short, landed at Williamtown after dark, put us up in the Air Force barracks overnight, had a great breakfast, best breakfast I've had in years, and flew back to Sydney the next day and got my ass kicked. Severely. Okay, so the next photo there is up here with bush pilots when they were flying up here, Forest Air bush pilots. Next flight after this one, unfortunately, is after they scrapped it. There's the nose of it up at Cairns. And there's the rest of it up at Cairns. So that's a kind of history. You've seen one plane go through a whole history from, I haven't got around to getting it, but the next step for things like that, everything that's had an A65 number on it, I'll put out, and that becomes the first photo in the group. So Tony's rules are the last markings it carried before it became VH, and the first after it finished being VH. So you got a birth to death type of situation. Well, that one, its death's a bit different. It never got new markings, obviously. But there's many more like that. I could show you a few about tiger moths, for example, about ones that started off being donated to flying clubs after World War II. Say, for example, ones that went to Royal Vic down in Melbourne. They flogged them to death. The 30% that they didn't crash went to crop dusters. And of that 30%, another 85% of that 30% crashed, and the 2 or 3 that are left are still flying around looking rather pretty today, unless they paint them up in RFF markings and then they look bloody horrible. Does anybody want to look up something? Oh, well, gee, I'm sure I recognise that from somewhere. Let me have a think. No, it doesn't come to me immediately. Sorry, Warwick. One of the greatest flights I've had as a passenger ever, when you hung it off the prop and said, well, look at this. And it's just sitting there. What's going to happen next? Nothing. And it didn't. So when you look up CRO, you get all these other ones that have been CRO at some stage. So T50E, the Bell 212, would have been CRO at some stage. So CRO2, as you can see, here we go, is a Cessna. CRO1 is a Bell. CRO3 is, oh, look at that. Who would have thought? Let's see. Anybody recognise any of those names? How about Watts Bridge 2010 and the Tony Arvin photo? No, we do not put photos of people like you in. No, sorry, no. There is a limit. He did. Fabulous aircraft. Spectacular performance. That's right. It actually was the real deal, yes. Yeah. So there's Crow. And as I say, it's one of the ones that's got a full ownership history there. Yeah, there it is. Warwick Henry. 3 different addresses. Yeah. Well, anybody that's got more than one address is a drug dealer. You should know that by now. And that's this. You sold it to Greg Keith. Yeah, and this is Stuart Lee down Wangaratta. Now, I don't know whether it's ever, I've never seen a photo of it back in the air. I don't think so. Eh? Well, there's his address. So you can get his address off there and write to him. Yep. Okay, BSM, let's have a look. God, this is a small screen. Only with Apple products. Okay, so interesting enough. Was that a Navajo chieftain? No, it wasn't. So we look for some. How about a 425 Conquest? That look like it? See, the first one was BSM, a Chipmunk. BSM Regos were what? BS what? Regos? No, that's RS. Yeah. Oh, there was series. We'll look it up in a minute. Okay, so McNab now at Toowoomba. Oh, well, we know where that lives. Now, once again, have a look at the number of owners since 2012. And interesting, the only photo is a recent photo taken here by you know who. Yeah. That's what you just saw out there. Yeah. Who what? We can. Okay.
Well, where is it? Where is it now? Yeah. It's in New Zealand.
Oh, there it is there. Fancy that. Okay, so now its history goes back to when it was photographed when it first came to Australia and had end plates on it at Bankstown. Yeah, there it is. And you'll see once again, it only had the one rego in America. Yeah, 77. Then down at Essendon in a different colour scheme. So there it is there. No, it's slightly different, you'll see. And then, well, then now it's in the blue. In 2002, went in the blue scheme. And then if we go back to New Zealand, quick zip across the international date line, and it's still more or less the blue scheme, but notice the disguised registration.
Yeah,
but you can't even read it from more than 50 feet away.
Yeah, I've seen photos more legible.
Have you? Well, apparently we all like to have disguised registrations now for some reason. I can't imagine why you'd want them much.
18 years.
18 years, did you? Wow. But see, now, that's, as you see, that's its ownership in New Zealand. That's why you're not on there, because this is the New Zealand part of the database. Yep. Anybody else on the nominations, or we had enough one night? Oh, yep. Oh, MQS. Let's do that then. Where's your photo collection anyway? I've never seen it.
But nothing like the grandeur of
Beach A36 banana.
the banana, yeah.
We haven't got a photo of it for some reason. So banana, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a V35, is it not the A36? Ah. That's why I hadn't seen it. So, look at that. So, photo at Archerfield by Tony yet again. So there's its history. It came from the States in came from the States in 82 and went back to the States in 2003. That doesn't look too bad. That's actually quite tasteful. A 320. That's why I know it. I did an article on 320s. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, a victim of its own success.
Yes. Taking away.
That's what happens with those stinking 310s and things. And then it did that.
That was it.
The Redcliffe, yep. Yep. 2002.
Yes. I was nowhere near it.
So you didn't claim the insurance.
No. I think the insurance might have been voided for a lot of reasons.
Oh. Well, you see, that one actually came from
Canada.
Canada. Well,
no.
but on a Canadian rego.
Yes.
Yeah, rather interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll see its actual con number was very low, number 31. And that's only because they built about 50 of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it was a very special version of the Cessna.
Yeah. And the trouble is that they couldn't justify the difference in price over a 310, so only half a dozen of them ever came to Australia.
Right,
Yeah. Unfortunately.
One of them crashed at the Barry.
They did. Yes. All right.
There was another one, DRK.
DRK. Yeah. Yep. If you look in the back issues of Downwind, you'll find them all in there in an article. So if you ever wondered if anybody reads Downwind, there's the evidence. No, those are, there's your one.
There.
Yeah, number one. You see how it goes again? DRK1. When it's finished, DRK has a little DRK. That's the second one of that rego. So you see there's a lot more photos of this one. Starts off new in about 71, down at Moorabbin. You see, and there you see the SPA in brackets. That means it was allocated, that registration, but not ever taken up to the plane. So in brackets means that's a registration that was actually allocated but never actually used. So it gets good when you get a photo of it. Yeah.
Would have been the CASA would have just put a block on him, was in the register.
Yep.
But not allocated. Until you look like that.
Precisely. So there's its history in different colours. And you'll see at that stage, do you know what that C is?
Silver.
Yes. So they had it for a short while. And then it became somebody else's. I'll just see if I can blow that up a bit. So that's Questco. So, yeah. Oh, that's aerial photography models. Yeah. Sorry? That's East West. Yeah, one of East West companies. Yes. Yeah, the mapping one. Yep. And the last one will be when someone painted a rather unusual green scheme. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't look too. And see, we actually got them to lower the wings down so the. Oh, yeah, what's the problem, isn't it? Yep. Yeah.
Some photographers actually do carry a little.
A surprising number. Yeah, surprising number.
I did it myself. So.
So there it is. It was registered VHX US, but I don't think it ever carried that. So you'll see what it says there in previous regos. It actually says VHX US, that it was registered as that. But as I've never seen a photo with those markings, that's possibly because there isn't any. Did you ever hear of it being marked? Oh, okay. You might be right then. So that's the way it looked at Wanaka when it first went over there. It'd be very, very pretty. I don't think we got a photo of it. No, we should have a photo of the way it looks these days inside the so-called museum covered in really spectacular. Hey? Yeah, it's horrible. But see, once again, see its history, and American history and XA history, another American history, and of course the 42 series. Military. Yeah, I thought I just looked at that. And I don't know. You could be right, I might have missed it. Oh, here we are. There, no, that's the new XUS. Yeah, there it is. You're right, Tony. Fancy you being right. Right, so there it is in America as its end plate. And there is it an Avalon in 92 by David Carter once again. Now, I'm not sure that it actually had the VH markings on it. That's what I didn't think I had. There, Flew the Coop, that's its name. There's its American mark. Beautiful plane. Okay, is that enough?
UUL.
Oh, yeah, we all know UUL. God's truth. Some de Havilland product, apparently. This is another one with a good history. As you can see, it's had more owners than an FJ Holden. CANX, cancel. Means people in the old days, when you could suspend a registration for a year, 2 years or nothing, not pay rego, they do that. They just cancel it, hold the rego open, and then when they had it flying again, put it back on again. It was very, very common, but particularly with ag planes, where they 6 months a year, every year, they have it suspended. Yeah. You'll see there where, so here it is originally, its original date, all right, which is way back. And you'll see in 1970, it was withdrawn from use, which means for a short period, more than likely that was some damage or a repaint or something like that. So cancel the rego for a few months, save a few bucks, restored, withdrawn again, restored again. Now, you know, Bill Finland out at Boonar used to own it. And he sold it, as you see in the February 24, sold it down to Sydney. Belinda to Sony. Now, has it got photos? Well, I should hope so. So there, you see that where it said there about somewhere back there, so it said withdrawn from use in 70, but I suspect that it was unusable for a lot earlier than that, because that photo's in 64, then it comes back in 65, then out to 74. So you see the progress here of the different. That's the green that I think looked brilliant on it. That's when it was painted in the fictitious markings for reenactment or something. Yeah, yeah. And then it went back to the current de Havilland scheme. You like that one? Yeah, I've got to admit I had a soft spot for the green one, but anyway. Oh, Casey Field, Berwick, eighth month of 90. And again, yeah, when you look down there, you see those names come up that I talked about earlier. You know, the Goodall, then Ricketts, then Madden, and then whoever Tony Arbin is, somebody. Yeah. But they keep cropping. You'll see the same things as names just crop over and over again because their collections were just so huge. Alrighty, any more for any more? ADF Serials, the website called ADF Serials, and look up Dakotas on that. You'll be amazed at how many there actually were. Yeah, and when you look at the history, yeah, the amount that rolled themselves up in balls somewhere, yeah.
And land capitals on land lists.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Is there anybody online got any questions? Or?
Yeah, I got lost there for a while. Didn't know where I was.
Jesus, Bob. You want to buy that camera, Rich, you present?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was very good. We'll enjoy looking at that. I hadn't seen it before. Thank you.
Oh, good.
That was Tom Lockwood.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Hey, everyone.
If I may say something,
Surely.
the late John Hopton, a few decades ago last year, contacted the Melbourne Museum to see if they were interested in his collection. They had
Yes.
a look at it and said, yes, we would be, but we'd pick one negative of each type and dump the rest. John declined the offer.
Yeah. Well, John wanted me to take his digitised collection and use as much as I possibly could on AAD. And I kept putting off going down to put it onto a big set of memory blocks. And then he just lost, I don't know what it was, but he was just so inconsiderate and decided to die instead of doing it. I've never forgiven him. Well, what's been happening is it's still promised for the collection is still promised for that, but at the moment they've decided to catalogue it or something like that, and that with the number it's there, I won't live long enough to ever see it, I don't think. Same as Jeff Goodall's collection. It's just so much there to catalogue that
Is that Rappel cataloguing that?
yeah. And I think we're not sure, but apparently Goodall's collections ended up somewhere in South Australia to be catalogued. So, as I say, I'm not expecting to ever see him now. But it's a shame.
No more questions online. I might shut down the session if that's okay.
Well, thanks for arranging that. Really appreciate it.